As you can tell, I am overly excited. And why? Epic C Films, would you like to answer why I am so jacked up and excited?
Yes, because you won your matchup in fantasy football.
And that means because of that victory, I am going to the semifinals. And as you can tell, also, I've made this video public. So of course, because this video is public, this video itself will be brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code RoofTopSports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you. And to all those that have been using that promo code, thank you very much. Maybe this will be an opportunity to watch a football game based on who's on my fantasy team, so you can use that promo code, go to that game, and support my fantasy football team. Anyways, the quarterfinals of the Fantasy Football League is in the books. The first two seeds, which belongs to RPO Tank and CDs TDs, they enjoyed their bye week, so they are going to the semifinals. As for the semifinals itself, let's go over Epic C Films. Unfortunately, Epic C Films, you lost 151.5 to 99.8, considering that you were heavily favored to win. But unfortunately, it was Belichick yourself, the defending champion. He absolutely obliterated your team. And as for my matchup, which I'm extremely excited about, and because of the overexcitement I have, I just have to celebrate. This is a low sugar soda, only has 5 grams. Got this. I got this from Trader Joe's if I remember, but I'm gonna drink this throughout the show while enjoying my victory. It's actually pretty good soda, and it's grape flavor too. If you remember Jimmy Neutron from Nickelodeon, it would have been called Purple Flurp. And if it was Keenan and Kel, if I had an orange soda, then it would be the orange soda. And Kel really loves that orange soda. But anyways, my matchup, I won 146.3 to Autodraft's 127.2. This was also considered a huge upset because he was a 10-point to a 15-point favorite against me. So had you put your money, let's say $10 on me, you would have made a profit. But it just didn't happen. And crazy to think that this is the second straight season where I have made the semifinals, not only off of a 1-5 start, making it as a 6th seed and making a huge upset on the 3rd seed. So yeah, let's go over the score. We'll go over yours first. Belichick yourself versus Epic C Films. So Epic C Films, unfortunately, the heroics of Jalen Hurts was not enough, and Jamar Chase literally did half of the performance that he did last week, and Garrett Wilson didn't really do much, and your 49ers running back didn't really do much either. Seahawks defense was 0, which all contributed to your loss to Belichick yourself, which his team basically did everything. Like, unfortunately, it was almost like there was nothing you could have done. Baker Mayfield just went off for 27.9 points. Malik Neighbors of the Giants randomly went off for 24.2. And Devontae Adams, 42.8. And also the Broncos defense for 19. So, unfortunately, your team just happened. Like, you were the favorite to win this game, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So, Epic C Films, how you holding up? How you feeling about the unfortunate defeat in your first ever playoff appearance? And I really did think you had a solid chance to make it to the semis.
So
that's it. Man, I was gonna drink my soda, and all you can say is so. But okay, but give me like a objective like feeling of like how your team and throughout this game.
I was gonna go on and say more, but I was starting with so. And the reason why I say so is, to me, fantasy, I just do it for the fun of it. You know, it doesn't matter if I win or lose at the end of the day. To me, it's like, you know, what happens is part of fantasy, it all goes down to the word luck. 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 And so, because you can do all the statistics you want and try to set up your team to be the best for the best success based on statistics and analytics, and that can help you be a better team, yes. But at the end of the day, that has to play into luck. And so with this things, like my quarterback played the same as his quarterback. His quarterback wasn't any better than mine. You look at our running backs, okay, his running backs played a little bit better than my running backs. Where it came down to was, okay, he had a slightly better improvement on his actual wide receivers, but what was really big was the actual was actually his flex player. His flex player, which was actually a wide receiver, actually way outperformed my flex player at the end of the day. So I think the biggest key to his success was how well Davante Adams played this week, because last week I had a huge week from Jamar Chase, but this week he, like you said, he did about 2 to 2.5 times less points than last week. So that's kind of one of the biggest things for my team. And also the other thing that I think really hurt my team was actually the success of the actual Broncos defense versus my Seahawks defense, who didn't step up and actually perform, at least give me some points this week. They gave me none, like you said earlier. So at the end of the day, I think everything else is kind of more like even playing field. It just was those two big pieces of the Broncos defense and the actual Davante Adams playing so well compared to my team that led his team to have such a dominating victory. Because when you have a player scoring pretty much versus like one of your players scoring like 35 more points, it's hard to compete. It's kind of hard to compete with that.
Yeah, and the sad thing part too is the Colts tried some really stupid lateral play, which led to an insane interception by the Broncos. Did you ever see that clip?
Nope, I have not seen the clip.
No, you didn't. Well, it was actually pretty embarrassing, and it was actually ended up being a pick six. So I'm not saying that was the reason why you lost, but it certainly did not help. But it didn't really matter because Belichick yourself, the team, he just simply just dominated you. Like there's just no questions asked. Like just absolutely dominated. Like if I played him, I would have lost. So there was literally nothing that you really could have done. Like at this point, it's like, I guess it was just for you. It was just a thrill just to even make it to the playoffs for the first time, because you did have some struggles. Like you had a struggling finish last season, which got me into the playoffs, and this time this is finally your taste for the playoffs. So what are your expectations going forward now that you're out for the season and now you have to look forward to next season?
So for a little bit more recap, and then going into the expectations for next season, is looking at what I've done, and like the other thing is like the actual bench. My bench wouldn't have really saved me much either, based on the players I've had on the bench versus the players I actually played. All their players they played did better than their bench. My players, I had a couple that could have produced a couple more points here, maybe a few more points here, maybe five points more here or there, and that would have still been really dominant. I would have been dominated. But going into next season, I think one of the biggest things I need to think about, and I think a lot of people in the league need to think about, is how to balance your team. You need to have a solid wide receiver and a solid running back and a solid quarterback. If you have those three good pieces, the rest of your team doesn't matter. You can throw anybody in there as kicker, because most kickers are going to get you 5 to 10 points a week. That doesn't change much. 5 to 10 points isn't much of a difference between kickers. So kickers are less important. And then defense, at the end of the day, every once in a while, a defense might go off for almost 20 points. But most of the time, you're going to have a defense that's going to average you about, 6 points a week. So that doesn't matter much. So what I need to focus on more next year is just picking a running back earlier on than I did this year. That was one of my biggest struggles this year.
Okay, so yeah, let me take a look and see who your running backs were before we get into my. It was so struggling that you had to pick up a 49ers waiver wire running back. You had DeAndre Swift, I guess. Let me see how he did throughout the season. He was very streaky, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, your running back play was very spotty at best, but you did have Jamar Chase and Jalen Hurts and even Geno Smith, who carried you throughout the season. And fortunately, by the way, if you're a Seahawks fan, which we all are, Smith is fortunately The injury wasn't as bad as anticipated, so there is a good shot that he will be available for a critical game on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. But before we get into my matchup, where it was Rooftop Koreans and Auto Draft, usually this video would be a membership only video, but because we are in the playoffs, I think it would be more appropriate if I actually put it out in public just to see what everyone thinks of my fantasy football league. And if you would like to get a recap of my entire fantasy football season, join my YouTube membership for just $5 a month, and you'll get exclusive access to my fantasy football content and Epic C films. Would you like to join that membership so you can get the exclusive access and get the whole summary of how my fantasy football season went?
No, thank you right now, because I know how the season went because I'm part of it.
Oh, right. Well, I thought I just asked because in the world of sales that you never know what you get unless you just ask.
Yeah.
I thought I did my part. Sometimes it's better to get a no than a no response.
Yes.
Actually, that's always better. But now going into my matchup, we've got Rooftop Korean, myself, and the Auto Draft. And I know I said it before, but Auto Draft was heavily favorited to win this game. And when the game started, it didn't look like it was going too well. And actually, before I even expressed that, I was really nervous because the previous week, and I needed Auto Draft to absolutely win this game, he didn't win because his quarterback, Jaden Daniels, was out, and he didn't have a solid backup quarterback option, so he was left with Will Levis, who only scored 6.9 points. Other players that were on bye was Cortland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. So half of his, not like half of his players, but like I would say 33% of his players were on bye. And then once he got his team back on full force, he was expected to win this game. Like the projections was, he was projected to beat me by 15 points, 125.1 to 110.1. But as the time went on, or actually before that, he was actually on pace to completely obliterate me. But then something happened. And excuse me, the projections was 130.3 to 115. So he was actually a 15-point favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But then something just strange happened. And all it took was really 3 players that really carried the team. Jared Goff, where I've had quarterback struggles throughout the entire season because I drafted CJ Stroud over
Joe Burrow.
It was Joe Burrow. And Amon-Ra St. Brown over
Jamar Chase.
But here's what happened. Jared Goff, who was my backup quarterback, he exploded against the Buffalo Bills to score nearly 41 points. And Amon-Ra St. Brown basically played at the level that Jamar Chase did. So this was exactly the draft. He played exactly for the reason I drafted him, as he scored over 37 points. And James Cook, another huge part of my fantasy team, 26.3 points. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, just to add it on, 18.3 points. I was expecting him to score a little bit more because he was pacing pretty well, because we all noticed that Geno Smith was feeding the ball a lot. And then once Sam Howell came in, Jackson Smith and Jigba basically didn't even exist. And some key moves that I did make was I benched CJ Stroud and I benched Marvin Harrison Jr. because those two have been complete duds. And the only mistake I really made, 2 mistakes I really made, I benched the Dallas Cowboys kicker in Brandon Aubrey. That actually costed me 7 points. And Steelers defense, who I should have played against over the Chargers defense, because they scored -4. So the final score was 146.3 to 27.2, but there was one little obstacle that was in the way. It was Monday Night Football. And the crazy thing is, for the second week in a row, I needed a Monday Night Football, not saying miracle, but I needed, like, my matchup ended on Monday Night Football again. And Bijan Robinson was on, and I thought, like, if he was playing against the Raiders. I thought that the Raiders were pretty much had nothing to play. I thought they were just going to let him run him over. But he only scored 14.5, and he actually needed around 35 to 37 to defeat me, which that didn't happen. So that made it 146.3 to 127.2. Now, to explain even further how insane my fantasy football season has gone to the run to the semifinals, here's how insane it has been. I had a 1-5 start, and before that, actually, let me start over. I drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown again over Jamar Chase, CJ Stroud over Joe Burrow. Then I stumbled to a 1-5 start. Then I had to go 6-2 just to basically have even a final day opportunity to make the playoffs. I took care of business, but the other insane part, I needed Fan Price to lose, who had the same record as me, and he did lose. And then I needed 8 equals D to lose in the hands of Epic C Films. Excuse me. In that Epic C Films, he bailed me out on Monday Night Football with the help of Jamar Chase scoring 46 points or something like that, just to have me make the playoffs as the 6th and final seed. Made the playoffs at the skin of my teeth, while last year I made the playoffs just because I needed to win, but then just Epic C to lose. But I needed to not only win, but I needed to win with make the playoffs with all these factors. And here I am. I just made one of the greatest upsets in the history of fantasy football as a 15-point underdog against AutoDraft. And now I'm in the semifinals. And Epic C Films, what, do I get any kind of a congratulations from you? Or what? Any kind of your reaction out of my victory going to the semifinals?
Mr. Lucky.
You're the third person to say that. My future matchup in the semifinals says I'm the luckiest player, and my opponent also says I'm insanely lucky. And to make it even more crazy, Team AutoDraft actually instructed me to not even contact him after the game if I won, because he said he needed some privacy because he was that upset that I defeated him. And this is like the second or third time I defeated him in the playoffs in any sort of fantasy sports. And now I'm giving him his space where he deserves. And yeah, Epic C Films, any objective analysis on my game?
Yes. So with the luckiest, you were very lucky because the week that Jared Goff plays is he plays the Buffalo Bills, and they're two of the higher scoring teams in the league. Let's say that they're both averaging like somewhere around, I don't know, 30 points a game or something like that. So you talk about two high scoring offenses. That means that if you're playing high scoring offenses and you're having these shootout games, you're going to get more points. So you happen to be lucky that the Detroit played Buffalo this week. So that was one of your big things because you had two big players from that team. Which when you have a quarterback play with a wide receiver, you can get double the points. It's actually a really good combo to have. I used to have that back in the day. There was like Matthew Stafford and there was Megatron, And so there's things like that where you have these combinations of players where you put them together, you can do really well. Like thinking like maybe I thought Geno and like DK would do really well. No, now this year it was actually Geno and like it was Jackson Smith and Jigba. So you have these combos going on in the league that can get you a lot of points, and you just happen to have it on the right week when they played a team that does score a lot of points, and that forced them to score more points. So things just happen to align very well for you because if you look at your team, like you usually shouldn't draft rookies because rookies are not going to be the best players. Like how often does a rookie end up being in the top 10 for scoring most years? There's very rare that a rookie is averaging top 10. And then the other thing so Marvin Harrison Jr. was not a great pick. And then on the other hand, to think about your picks, on the other hand, is like you expect, okay, a quarterback's going to get you about 18 points a week on average. You had a quarterback, which there's a thing called the sophomore slump. Oh, CJ Stroud had the sophomore slump. And so, and I knew Jared Goff from previous years would only average you somewhere between 15 and like 20 points. So at best, he was going to be a 20-point quarterback that still not be top 5 quarterbacks in the league or top 5 players in the league. So I knew he was only going to average maybe 17 points a week. That's why I didn't draft him, because I've experienced him before. So you just happen to have a really lucky and things collided, lined up really well for you during this week. But I'm saying, just looking at that analysis, looking at the other team's analysis here too, is like they did not play bad. Like they still had a really good week. They almost averaged what they were supposed to average. The projections were right on almost. They were 3 points off basically in projections. And so their players did what they needed to do. It's just you can't always, it's like you just happen to have that extra push. And and you didn't even, like, the one thing, like you said earlier, is 2 things that could have helped your team more with some of the decisions you made was choosing the wrong defense and choosing the wrong kicker. You never know who's going to perform better as a kicker or as a defense. Technically, the kicker you played a lot worse. You lost 7 points there, and the defense you lost 9 points. So that was kind of your 2 weak spots. But because those other players played so well, they made up for the fact that you had 2 bad decisions there that you made, not great decisions you made there. So that was kind of one of the things. But I think the other things to note is with our teams is that, just like me, you did not draft good running backs this year. You didn't have the best running back play, and you had worse wide receivers than me. Your wide receiver play wasn't strong, and your quarterback wasn't strong. Your team, what did you have to rely on that team? One piece that actually did improve, 2 pieces that kind of improved your team, but one was Jack Smith and Jigba playing better and getting better throughout the year, and Geno trusting him more really helped your team. That was the good pick. And then you picking up Russell. For a few weeks, Russell did really well for you and got you back in the mix.
So it looks like my team had a little bit of Seahawks magic throughout the season so maybe I shouldn't hate on Geno Smith as much as I do. Maybe I owe him gratitude. And the ironic thing is, 2 of the quarterbacks that I was doubting, Russell Wilson and Geno Smith, ironically have helped my team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the thing, because if Geno wasn't as good of a passer, didn't pass as much as he did, Jackson and Jigba wouldn't get as much actual yardage and get as many points as he does now. Look at 18 points. There must be something going on with Geno that's really pushing that thing there. Because Geno overall hasn't been doing the best, but he's still averaging a lot of yards. Just one of his things, like a lot of players in the league, and I see a lot of players. I've seen so many players this year that have at least 10 interceptions this year, quarterbacks. That is so common this year. So many quarterbacks have had a lot of issues this year with turnovers.
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to add on?
No, I think that's it for this analysis. I even looked at your bench, and we talked about your bench, and I talked about the other team. The last thing I want to look at is the other team's bench, and is there anything on his bench that could have helped him? Well, technically, DJ Moore would have helped him a little bit more. That would have got him about 3 more points there, and that would have been a big push. And then beyond that, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that would have helped him here at the end of the day. Not really. The only thing that would have improved him overall would have been 3 points from that one player.
So basically, I just got insanely lucky. Things that happen were literally not supposed to happen on conventional status. So yeah, I mean, whoever says I'm lucky has every right to say that I was lucky, and I think you're the one to say that I should be even more thankful of what I think. For what you would say, you think that I should be taking this as a bonus at this point. I think you even said that me even making the playoffs, considering how badly I drafted and the bad start I had, that I should be even thankful that I'm even in this spot.
Yes. And I bet if I went through all your analysis and looked back at it, that this was your best week of the whole season. Because I'm looking at you had a week 2 where you had 136 points. This was way outperforming that week. That was one of your better weeks, was week 2 of the whole regular season. And so getting up to these numbers takes a lot to get up to 140, 46 and stuff like that. And with the team you had and the way it was going with your team, I'm things just aligned very well for you. And like I said, you needed 2. Last week we talked about this. You needed 2 or 3 things to happen for you, and you got them. That is luck twice in a row to get this far in the league for you. Because with the team you have, You shouldn't be. You
I
should have
shouldn't
been
even be in
out.
the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, you think, based on the personnel I have, like, I should not be in the playoffs. So, like, and we've had NFL teams that shouldn't have been in the playoffs, and I think they made deep runs. Like, I think like we think of the New York Giants back in 2007 and 2011. Like, they made their playoffs at arguably the skin of their teeth, and they made that big run. Now, I'm not projecting that I'm going to make that kind of run because we still have to see what we do in the semifinals, but I guess things like that happen. But we should go into the semifinals. And of course, we don't have projections ready because, I mean, it's not Tuesday, and Tuesday's when final results are in and projections. And the only reason why we did this show tonight was because the point spread was just so significant. It was like, why even wait? So here we are going to the semifinals. We've got RPO Tank and we've got Bella Check Yourself. They will be squaring off each other in the semifinals. That will be, I think that will be a huge matchup. It'll be defending, actually, it'll be two defending champions playing against each other. So it's going to be about who is going to be better, as we will see.
So we have RPO Tank, and you said the other one was going to be who else?
It was RPO Tank and Bella Check Yourself. So let's check out those projections. And while you're checking out the projections, I accidentally stepped on my power strips. I gotta turn it back on. So yeah, take a look at those. SoFi is an online bank and a personal financing company offering financial diverse products. They hold the naming rights to the home of the Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers, named SoFi Stadium. They offer amazing checking and savings accounts where you can get up to 4.6% on savings accounts. There are no monthly fees to maintain the accounts, and they have over 55,000 no-fee ATMs around the United States. You even have access to a budgeting program, stock trading, and insurance programs. Join SoFi and get $25 for joining and or $25 for opening a stock trading account. Links are available in the description. And thank you. And lastly, I am not a financial advisor, so either find a professional financial advisor or go with your own gut.
So looking at the first matchup here, I'm looking at the first matchup. One of the things that's going to be very interesting and critical for this matchup is we see this here where RPO Tank has Patrick Mahomes, who has an injury. And we've seen him on a high ankle sprain injury before win the Super Bowl. So if he's that determined again, he will play again. But this year, looking at the matchup between Belichick Yourself and RPO Tank, Baker Mayfield has been playing better as a quarterback this year than Patrick Mahomes. But then you look at the next matchup, you have running backs. Well, technically Saquon Barkley's been playing a lot better than Bryce Hall. So right there, you're making up the points right there anyway from that. So it's almost like a wash. And then you look at who has the better wide receivers. Well, the better wide receivers technically, let's see, their wide receivers are about the same. So that's not really any difference there. And then you keep going down the list and down the list. You're saying, okay, who has a better defense? Who has the better defense on average? And let's see, defenses. Technically, their defense is about the. Let's see, they're about the same. The defenses are about the same, so that's not really a big difference. So what's gonna make this matchup the difference in this matchup when I look at it overall is whose quarterback and whose running backs and whose quarterbacks perform better. That's gonna be the big matchups there.
And the thing that I would be concerned about if I'm RPO Tank is even without the injury, Pat Mahomes has been struggling throughout the entire season. And he was actually one of the quarterbacks that I was coveting in the draft. I thought I was going to get him, but it didn't happen. And let's look at his complete stats. He's only scored over 20 points twice throughout the entire season.
But look at this average. Average, he's been scoring 16.6. So average, he's been scoring 16.6. And the other thing to note is that if you look at someone like Baker Mayfield, he's been scoring 20.5. So he scores about only 4 points more. So on average, that's not that much difference. But then look at the next big matchup I was telling you about. The next big matchup is actually Bryce Hall versus basically Saquon Barkley. Bryce Hall's been only averaging 15.6. But then you go over here to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley right there has been averaging 22.1. So you say that's about 16 to 22. That is about 6 points more. So at the end of the day, that's 6 points versus that 4. That's 2 points more for the advantage going towards RPO tank. That's only 2 points. So that's like I said, almost a wash. But there is a slight advantage there. When you look at like the kickers, you look at the defenses, they're all pretty much the same. There's not much difference in the defenses in the kickers. Then you're talking about, okay, the wide receivers. Who has better wide receivers? You're talking about they both don't have the greatest wide receivers in the game. They didn't really focus that much on their wide receiver game here. Look at it. You're talking about like the only thing is that will Jamar Chase Devontae Adams have another great week? Most likely he's not. He's been averaging 17 points a week, but is he going to go off for another 30 or more point week? I doubt it. And you also got to look at the matchup that they are playing in that game. Last week they played Jacksonville. I don't know who they played this week. So that's going to be another interesting thing going forward.
Let me look up Devontae Adams' thing really quick. And that was with Belichick yourself. He has Devontae Adams. And looking at Devontae Adams, he's playing against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah. So they're playing the Rams. The Rams have a better defense, a better team than the actual Jacksonville Jaguars. So if you go to that matchup,
New York Jets.
The New York Jets. So the New York Jets. So the New York Jets are playing the Rams, and what's going to happen in that matchup is that the Jets are actually going to be a better overall team than what they played last week. So his production is going to go down. So you're assuming, okay, he's going to get somewhere maybe at best 25 points. But then look at this. Atlanta, I looked at one of the guys at the RPO tank has. He has some guy named Drake London from Atlanta who's been scoring about 15 points a week. So that's only 2 points less. So this matchup is almost like a wash where it all depends on the certain matchups of who goes off like crazy in this game. And the other thing is, like, let's say that Patrick Mahomes doesn't play. Who's his backup quarterback? He has literally no backup quarterback on his team.
He's going to have to play the waiver wire.
And on the waiver wire, is there anybody in the waiver wire that's even worth playing that could potentially be really good as a quarterback? Well, let's go to see. In the waiver wire, who do we have on average who's the best quarterback? Oh, there's a guy that averages 15 points a week. Well, that guy's out. So the next best guy you have on the waiver wire now is pretty much the best guy is Drake May. You're basically banking on Drake May to score you, and he scores about 15 points a week. So it's not even that much worse than Patrick Mahomes.
But it's still not something to depend on to take you over the top.
No, but I'm just saying it's possible that is not really that bad off, because look at this. Your guy only averages 16.6. This guy's averaging what? 14.9. It's like what? 1.7 points different. That's not that much.
I wonder if that's something he'll be considering going into Sunday, because if he doesn't make that change and Pat Mahomes isn't available, then that's going to be more than trouble. Like, he may not even win that matchup. But after doing all this analysis, who do you see winning this game, just based on ballpark projections?
Ballpark projections, I think that what's going to be really big is I think it's going to be the actual. I think one of the key factors in this game is going to be the running back play, and I think Saquon Barkley, because of Saquon Barkley, he's going to win. I think RPO Tank's going to win because of how much I think Saquon Barkley is going to go off. I don't know who Philadelphia is playing this week. I'd have to look that up.
I'll do that for you right now.
Yeah, because if I know that, then I'm like, I think he can have a big week.
He's playing at Washington, so that could be trouble because Dan Quinn's defense, and it's a rivalry game.
But I still think that's going to be a really game where they're going to utilize him a lot. They've already utilized him a lot in this season. So I feel like he's going to have a really good game that game because he's going to really want to win. I think that's going to be a great rivalry game. So I think that's a game where they can go off. And I think that's one of the keys of the game.
Looking at the defense of who does it best, the Washington Commanders, they are actually in the bottom tier of defense. So maybe RPO Tank does have a chance with Saquon Barkley. So we see. So you think that RPO Tank is the favorite to win the game. And now let's go into the semifinals. And this one is going to be between Rooftop Korean and the not auto draft CDs TDs who's also in the semifinals. He did enjoy that bye week, going 9-5 as the second seed. The thing is, he's most likely going to be projected to win. I played him twice and I lost to him. Let's take a look and see how many points I did lose to him, because I know I lost to him twice throughout the season. I lost the opener to him 123.3 to 77.6. And then towards the end of the season, he defeated me 125.2 to 85.5. So looking at his team when you have the opportunity, as you probably are looking at his team.
Yes, I am.
What do you see in the CDs, TDs?
So I think the keys to this game is, let's see. I think it would look it up. But who is Arizona Cardinals playing next week?
We're looking at Arizona Cardinals schedule. They are going to play Carolina.
Okay. The reason why they're going to win, and the reason why I believe in this analysis that CDTDs is going to win, is because Kyler Murray and Trey McBride's going to have a huge game and beat Carolina.
Ouch. So I better hope that he passes to Marvin Harrison Jr., because that's who I also have on my fantasy team.
But will you play Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I don't know yet. And chances are maybe he's watching this video, so I'm not going to tell him.
Yeah. And the thing about this is that Kyle Murray, if Kyle Murray plays really well, and one of his favorite receivers is McBride, if they go off in that game, because even though the Panthers have gotten better throughout the year, they still are not winning games. That's the thing. They're not getting over the hump. So I feel like Kyle Murray and Trey McBride are going to something's going to click in that game, and they're going to go off. And if those two people go off, you're going to have a hard time. The only other keys to that game is who is actually the Dallas going to play, because will CeeDee Lamb have a great game? Because he has three big players right there. Plus, he also has San Francisco's Jennings. So he has four really big players. How do your players compete up to them? Well, you have Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a passing quarterback, so he's not going to get you much in the running game and stuff like that. And, they have a really tough schedule left. The actual
the Lions?
Yes.
Let me look at the Lions. So
are they playing
you're
San Francisco
saying
this week, or are they playing San Francisco next week?
Jared Goff, they will be playing at Chicago.
Yeah, so they're playing Chicago. So he could have a big game that game. But Chicago can be sneaky sometimes because they have won a few games this year. And then you also have, so if because that could be something there, but I doubt that they're going to go way off. Because look at this. Some teams will play down to their competition. Some teams play better than their competition. And you never know what's going to happen there. And then if Geno Smith doesn't play this week, then Jackson Smith and Jigba is getting nothing.
So I could be in trouble.
Because if Sam Howell plays, that's going to be one of the biggest keys. So if that happens, you might even want to play Marvin Harrison Jr. over playing Geno Smith. Maybe
you mean over Jackson Smith and Jigba.
You might, but it's just thinking about things like that. To the keys of the game is that if Geno plays, you'll get some production out of him. But you even look at like some players and you expect, okay, what was his best week ever? His best week ever was 37 points. But beyond that, he only averages about 15.5. So you're saying that he has a good week. He might go off for 25, but that's like a great week for him, for Jackson Smith. And then you're talking about the Chargers aren't as great of a defense as you think they are.
I guess the Jim Harbaugh magic is not doing it.
No, because look at the Chargers this year. They're averaging 7.1. That's fine for a defense. That's not amazing, but that's fine. That's like average for a defense.
But it's not playoff quality.
No, and then and like you see, the Vikings average more than you. The Vikings average 2.6 more better than you. They're 9.7 for their defense, so you're getting slightly more there. And like you talk about kickers, you have Denver's kicker. He averages 9.4. Their kicker averages 9.4. So your kickers are basically
A wash.
A wash. And if you look at the stats for this year, okay, Jared Goff averages 18.8 points this season. Okay, Kyle Murray averages 16.6. You have, okay, we're talking about some of the other players on their team. We're talking about like tight ends. McBride is averaging, actually, let's see how good they've been averaging. McBride actually averages, let's see, 15.0 as a tight end. Your tight end, who do you have? Houston's tight end. Houston's tight end averages diddly squat. That's going to be one of the differences of the game. If his tight end goes off and your tight end doesn't hold up, you're basically going to be screwed on tight end play.
So after all of that analysis, who do you expect to win?
I already said it. CDTDs, I think, has a better chance of winning this matchup because the players they have and the spots they have. I think your two weaknesses that are going to hurt. There's three weaknesses that are going to hurt you, and if they don't go off this week, because I still think that you have a solid core with Detroit, but I think your problem is going to be if Geno doesn't play, then your wide receiver
and Jigba is gone.
Jigba's going to be hurt. And then the other things to watch out for is your tight end play and your actual defense, tight end and defense. Watch out for those two things. That's your three negatives. I think for the other team, they have stronger cores there. I'm looking at to see if there's any negatives in their team. I don't see no negatives in their team because look at all their averages. Like everybody on their team averages. So their kicker averages 9.4. Their defense averages 9.7. Then beyond those two pieces, everything else on their team averages at least over 14.
So basically, you're saying that if I am to win, my players have to play exactly as they did this week, and if I somehow beat him, that will trigger even more players in my league, or maybe even my audience, to say, I am one lucky you know what.
Because look at this. I'm just looking at, if you take their averages, if you take his averages for the whole season, his average for the whole season is 136.55. 136. Let's just, we round to, we can even round up if you want to, but it's 137 basically. And then here's yours. Yours literally, so his is 137. Guess what yours is for your averages for your team? The ones that are starting.
110.
116.94. So 117. So he has basically, just based on averages, 20-point advantage over you. That's worse than last week.
So if I am to beat him, it would be considered an even more of a massive upset.
It would, because just looking at the averages, that's what we have to go based off of. And his team is set up and he has so much better, stronger star power than you. Like I said before, one of your biggest weaknesses is your tight end play. You do not have a good tight end.
I have David Njoku, but he's injured.
So you're basically
basically I have to rely on luck once again, and the question remains is, do I even have that? Could I even run? I mean, could luck be expired? Like most people will say that my luck could expire.
Yeah, but even if you're Njoku was playing, that's 13.4. So you're basically going to double your production right there, and you would still be behind his tight end, which his tight end is 15. So you'd still be 1.6 points behind his tight end, and it would all be based on matchups, who actually performs better. You're banking on Cleveland isn't that great of a team.
Yeah, they're garbage.
So it's like every once in a while they have a lucky week, but this guy still somehow is averaging good. But look at this. He had, yeah. So you're saying, like, that's the interesting question going back to it at the end of the day, is like you need to find a tight end.
You have to find something. And now I'm looking up the history of the semifinals for, what's his name? CDs, TDs, and he changes his name every single year. And just for fun, here's his 2017 name. It was called Lights Camera Action. He was basing that name off of Alvin Kamara because I guess he was trying to say the camera. That was pretty clever. He's really good with the names. I do like it. So 2017, he won the semifinals. That was his first semifinals appearance. Unfortunately, he did lose. In 2018, he made it to the semifinals again. And then 2019, how did he do? He actually made it to the semifinals again, but he did lose in the semis that time. And then 2020, how did he do? He lost in the semis, so he's 2-2 in the semifinals so far. In 21, he won semis to make it 3-2. Kyler, the creator, Kyler Murray. Back in 2020, it was Mixon with a Young Ho, based on Joe Mixon and a Korean kicker named Koo Young Hoo, or Young Ho Koo is what they call him. His name, other team name was Under the Influence, known as Carson Wentz, and you haven't heard of that guy's name in a long time. And then 2022, he was a third place finisher, so he was 4-2 in semifinals. In 23, didn't even make it to the semifinals at all. He made it as a quarterfinal, so he is 4-2 in the semifinals. And now going into my history of semifinals. In 2013, I won. 2015, I won. And then 16, I lost in the semis. And I had a huge drought. And then finally, 22, I won. So I guess in history, I am 3-2 in the semifinals. So we got a 3-2 team versus a 4-2 team. But doesn't really matter because you think. But here's the thing, though. The one thing I might have is there are times where he has been known to have heartbreaking meltdowns in semifinals to the finals. He has yet to win a championship, but of course that doesn't really matter because he's only lost in the semifinals twice. He does believe that he is cursed, so maybe my insane amount of luck can still carry me, and his bad luck can go against him. But based on the team that you see, do you think that luck will be on my side this time, or do you think it's going to take like an insane number of luck?
It's going to take a lot more luck because the way his team's projected is a bigger margin than last week. Last week, I think you were only like 10 or 11 points behind projections. This week, you're 20 points behind. So I feel like you have a bigger mountain to climb. And another thing, going back to it, we've always talked about your bad quarterback decisions. Look at this. CJ Stroud, you drafted in the fourth round. They only averaged 13.7 points per week. Look at this. Kyle Murray averages 16.6. What round was he drafted?
He was definitely drafted late, wasn't he?
He was drafted literally 7th round, and he averages 2.9 points better than CJ Stroud.
So in terms of value, I really failed on that one.
Because even Kyle Murray, 7th round, was better value than what you were getting. I'm saying like 7th round, you can still pick up a quarterback that almost averaged 17 points a week. And that is just saying things like that and looking at stats like that. I see it all the time. Like, you didn't do that's one of your biggest problems. And it's like, like what's crazy about it is that Jared Goff, was a better draft pick for you because he's averaging 18.8 now, is a better draft pick for you than CJ Stroud. I am looking at this here. You drafted him 13th round. Way better decision. Way better decision than CJ Stroud.
So you think my Jared Goff pick was probably one of my best picks in the draft?
CJ Stroud was such a bad pick. I'm like, you shouldn't have never even looked at him till like at least like 3 rounds later, because most quarterbacks, even the top 5 quarterbacks, are usually not drafted till third to fourth round. Show about the top 5 quarterbacks are drafted in the first first 5 rounds. You shouldn't even looked at him if you didn't think he was a top 5 quarterback till round maybe 6 at the earliest.
So we should probably agree that with the way I drafted, the way I started, and the way I got in the playoffs, this is like a bonus, isn't it? Like, even just making it to the semis is like a bonus for me. Like, I should even be happy where I am.
Yeah. Look at this. So so we were talking about your CJ Stroud pick. He averaged 13.7 7 points per week. Look at this. Gino right now, Gino averages 14.9, and that was 1.2 points more. And Gino was drafted what? I drafted him 7th round.
So I failed miserably in the draft, basically.
Literally, quarterbacks drafted in the 7th round are better than your quarterback you drafted 4th round.
You know the reason why I drafted CJ Stroud?
Why?
I got distracted by a bunch of. We were in a buffet, so the environment wasn't there for me. And also, I got caught off guard because I was supposed to pick Pat Mahomes, and some doofus named RPO Tank picked him. So I think those are valid excuses why I end up with CJ Stroud.
Don't make excuses. I was at the same buffet as you. So was macaroni and cheese. And think about this. I drafted fine for quarterback. I didn't do anything wrong. It's like people like. Here's the thing: is you always tell me don't make excuses. You're always saying you're always dogging on people for their bad mistakes that they make, and you never are forgiving. So why should I be forgiving to you?
So I deserve. So let's say if I lose in the semis, do you have like a huge bag of like criticisms headed my way? Like I think you seemed armed and ready this week to hand it to me.
Well, it's just at the end of the day, it's like you sometimes some people can be very hypocritical because they want a certain standard on other people, but they won't get the same standard to themselves.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's fair.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying.
You kind of gave me some content. Maybe I could say Epic Sea Films calls out Rooftop Sports on his hypocrisy.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying is next year I think one thing that you just need to focus on, like I said for myself, I need to focus on picking better running backs, and you need to focus definitely on quarterback decision making
and not being so hung up on rookies.
Yes, rookies and sophomores.
Yeah, I definitely went. My drafting was basically all on emotion.
Yeah, you were lucked out with Jackson with the Jigba, but that was a lucky sophomore pick.
I didn't even think of that he was just a sophomore,
and that's lucky because CJ Stroud and the other one, you were 1 for 3. Do you see how I always talk about the stat 1 for 3? Usually 1 out of every 3, based on whatever position. Like we talked about quarterbacks. Usually 1 out of every about 3 quarterbacks that are drafted like high in the draft do well every year.
So I really got to nail it next time. But until then,
yes,
it's about going to the semifinals. And I think we ran out of things to say. I mean, you've already reflected on how your season went. And obviously, I don't think there's a point in reflecting on the entire season and how it went. I think that will be some other time. That's probably going to be after the championship round, of course. Mm-hmm. But Epic Sea Films, I just want to say thank you for being on this show. And obviously, I expect you to be a regular. I mean, it's pretty unlikely that next week you'll be available because that you'll be in Arizona unless you're willing to be on the phone in your room or something. Would you do something like that?
I don't know yet, but right now I'm still we're going to be busy. So holidays, trying to get ready for just like the wrapping up, getting ready for like, the big thing, Christmas, So usually I'm kind of shut down for that time.
I guess so. I mean, that is fair, but I wanted to say that to all those that have been following my fantasy football league, especially through my membership, just wanted to say thank you very much for doing so. And to those that have been following my YouTube channel throughout this entire time, I just want to say thank you as well. Thank you, Epic Sea Films, for helping my channel throughout. And if you did watch this entire video, I thank you for that. But do me a solid. Join the membership. If you would like to get the entirety of the recap of my fantasy football season, join the membership for just $5 a month, and you'll get all of that exclusive content. And even going forward, you may see some more content like basketball, baseball, hockey, WNBA. But that is going to do it. We went through a lot just for 2 matchups that were quarterfinals, and the other 2 were bye weeks. And Epic Sea Films, before we close this show, what are your closing statements?
My closing statements are literally Lamar Jackson averages the most points per week at 25.5. He was drafted literally 4th round, last pick. Just wanted to put that out to everybody there that the best player in fantasy this year was actually a 4th round pick in our league, almost 5th round. And then I would like to say, don't drink, don't smoke, don't quit your day job, and have a wonderful day.
And also to everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and anything that you celebrate. And everyone, have a good night.